Okay, so now we're here with Jonathan Mayo. He does excellent work on MLB.com covering prospects. So, Jonathan, thanks for taking a few minutes. It's a big time in the prospect world right now because the draft's getting a little bit closer. George Lombard just got called up to Double A. The Mets are kind of looking for some help in the farm, maybe too. So, Jonathan, thanks again, and I'm looking forward to it.
My pleasure.
All right, so I'll start you with some Yankees prospects. I feel like George Lombard is probably one of the most talked about prospects in baseball right now. I got to spend some time with him this weekend, so I got some good impressions, I think. But I'm very curious on what you think about him, like maybe where his ceiling is, and maybe how fast is it realistic to expect him in a Yankee uniform?
Yeah, I think he's a little bit ahead of the curve than we probably thought for a high school guy, who's in a lot of ways just getting started. Obviously, he's got the pedigree with his dad having been in the big leagues. I actually just saw him not long ago. Happened to be in Asheville when Hudson Valley was visiting, and he's one of those guys that you kind of are drawn to him right away. Certain times you could be on a field, and even if you don't know that much about baseball, you almost instinctively know who the best player on the field is, and he just stands out. He looks the part. He's still growing into his strength. I think the thing that was most impressive with him is that last year, he struggled, and then he made adjustments, and those adjustments carried over. It wasn't just a half of a year kind of thing, and he kept it going, and that's why they felt comfortable moving him up to Double A. And it'll take him a little while to get his legs under him. That's a big leap for someone his age, but he's projectable. He's strong. I think there's going to be more power there. I think if it were a different organization and there were a need, I make the argument that assuming he handles the jump to Double A, well, that some point next year he could be ready. I think the question will be then, will there be room and opportunity for him? So I think 2027 is probably more likely for him. There's no reason to rush him.
Right.
He's still only 19. And because it's not like there's a need for a shortstop long term in New York, I don't think that they can sort of take their time and figure out what makes the most sense.
I would just say that I could see him being a third baseman too, and the Yankees really need a third baseman.
Sure. I mean, he could
could see
slide
that.
over. Yeah. No, that would be the next thing. But then you want to give him the time to do that rather
Right,
than
yeah.
ask him to learn how to play third base at age 20 in the big leagues on the fly. Right. So,
No,
I think he's the kind of player who it might just click and he's going to force his way, sort of like what happened with Volpe. He
right.
got to the big leagues, I think, a lot faster than you would think any Northeast high school player would, just because he checked off all those boxes. So, and that'd be a pretty good left side of the infield, I think, going forward too. He absolutely could play third base. I think he could play short. It's not like he'd move to third because he can't handle playing in position. It's because it would be because of need, and maybe so.
Yeah, because Volpe's a great shortstop defensively. George, he was actually funny. I'm happy I got to see him play third base because that's what they did with him when I was there over the weekend. So, I mean, he looks fine to me. For some reason, it just looks right to me. Like, I saw this spring training a little bit. Like, maybe it's a little bit too premature, but, like, I feel like his frame's going to build up well for third base, too.
You might be right. He's not small, right? But there are a lot of big shortstops now. So
that's true as well.
But if they want to keep working in third, he's not played a ton of it.
Yeah,
but he's played between last year and this year. They clearly are getting reps. I think what might be interesting is if they send him to the fall league, say, and he plays third base there. Then maybe that's a sign that they're really sort of giving him a longer look. And the fall league is a great place for that sort of thing because it's a little lower key. You can get a ton of reps without the pressure of it doesn't matter what your numbers are. Just go and work on playing the hot corner.
That's a good point as well. That's going to be something I'm going to look for now if he gets to play in the fall and they do that. Yeah, like you said, he's actually a phenomenal shortstop too. Like the manager was talking about comparing him to Omar Vizquel, which is like extremely high praise. So I was like taken back by that. That was definitely a comment that gets your attention. And I had a friend that also was saying that like in spring training, so that was kind of cool. But like we'll see how he does. He has a long way to go. He's
Yep.
definitely someone that you could be excited about at only 19 because he's the youngest Double-A player too, which is also nuts.
Yeah, no, and he doesn't sound like a 19-year-old. When you talk to him, like he's got a good head on his shoulder. It's the nature and nurture of having grown up around the game. He just had a sense of what he needed to do and where he was going, and not in an overly arrogant kind of way, just a sort of quiet confidence kind of thing. And I was very impressed by him after the conversation we had. He was a guest on our MLB Pipeline podcast a couple of weeks ago.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that later.
Yes, you should.
I definitely will. I'll take you up on that. So we'll move through Lombard. Let's go to another one. He's injured now, so it's a little bit murky, unfortunately. They said he's dealing with like some type of rib thing, but I don't think it's going to be long term. It's Spencer Jones. They don't expect him to miss like a month, but like it might be another week or two. Like they're very unclear with the timelines, as you know.
Yeah, right. And especially an injury like that is tough. Like you need to make sure that you're 100%, because we've seen the rib cage, obliques, things like that, where guys come back too soon and they just re-aggravate or re-injure the same thing. And given the force of his swing, I think you're going to want to make sure that he's absolutely healthy. I honestly don't know what to make of Spencer Jones at this point. The power and speed are very impressive. I've not seen him in long looks. I saw him spring breakout in 24 when he hit 2 homers and made a couple of amazing. He plays a better center field than I was expecting.
Really does.
So all of that is good, but man, it was a 36% strikeout rate so far this year, and that's like struck out 200 times. This is, I think the hope was that he would improve upon that. There's always going to be swing and miss, but the hope is in repeating Double-A that he would sort of cut down on that strikeout rate and make, be able to get to that power more as a result. The power still shows up, but that kind of strikeout rate in Double-A, I don't know how many guys strike out that much in the minors, even at the upper levels, and have success or sustained success, at least at the big league level.
Yeah, the one cop no one wants to hear is Joey Gallo, and if he doesn't clean up the strikeouts, that's where he would be heading, unfortunately.
A little bit. I mean, he's a little more athletic than not that Joey was a pretty fair athlete. Probably better than people realized. But Jones does give a little bit of that speed and defense that Gallo didn't do. But yeah, he ends up sort of falling into that, like, not as good a defender, not quite as fast as Drew Stubbs, but those guys who are just power and speed can play a little defense, but that's it. And like, could he hit 40 homers a year in the big leagues? Maybe. Will he hit 220? If he can hit 240, then it'll work probably, right? He's just going to make, I know batting average is far from the be all end all anymore, but you got to hit enough to make that power tool stand out. And right now I'm a little concerned over, what happened last year. And this year, it's too small of a sample size to really look into too much, but it's a continuation of those concerns. So that's what makes me pause.
I have optimism, but like I understand the trepidation too, because he's been in Double-A for a while. Like it's basically been parts of 3 seasons now.
Yep.
You got the late call up in 23, gets a full one last year, and now it is a small sample size, granted, but it's still way too much swing and miss. Even though the rest of the numbers look good, you just can't whiff that much if you want to like go up and continue to be what he's supposed to be.
I agree.
So I don't know. I mean, is there a timeline for him to get the AAA to see if he can figure it out better there, maybe? Because he's been in Double-A for so long. Once he gets healthy, like, I don't know. Like, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, because like I said, he's oddly productive. Like, I don't know how you hit 228 and have a 926 ops. Like, that's
pretty crazy.
That's an impressive thing, and that's not sustainable.
No.
And he draws walks like that. The walk rate has been encouraging, so that's better than last year. I mean, I think you get him back, let him see if he can get hot, and then even if he doesn't, I think sometimes you just move a guy up challenge him, and sometimes that something
Clicks.
lights the ignition, and or something clicks just because you move up a level. And I think at some point they're going to want to do that because he's not old, but he's not 20,
Right.
So I think they're going to want some. But timetable wise, I mean, I would have to think it's next year, unless he catches lightning in a bottle once he gets back from this injury and gets super hot and finishes the year and gets a taste of New York. But that swing and miss, like, you don't want to bring him up and have him sit there, right? He's got to come up and play. So there's got to be room in the Yankees outfield, or DH for it to make sense, because obviously the Yankees always have plans to try to play deep into October. And if he's not going to contribute to those plans, there's no reason to call him up yet.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you here on all of this, because in the beginning of the season, I kind of thought there could have been a lane before they knew what Trent Grisham was going to do. But now there's really no lane because they have 4 outfielders who are trying to rotate now. Everyone gets aggravated when someone sits already. Stan hasn't even returned yet. He'll play at some point. Who knows how long, but he will play some amount of games. So unless something happens, someone goes down or he catches lightning in a bottle, I'm looking more towards next year too now. Yeah, so an intriguing arm for me in the Yankee system. I don't know if you got to see it during the spring breakout, but it's a guy that I've been hyping up for a little while with a friend for like 2 years. Carlos Lagrange is starting to make our receipts look good now. He's been pitching really well at Hudson. He lights up the radar gun. The command and the secondary stuff's just starting to come along. So, what do you make of him?
Yeah, I did see him in the spring breakout in 24. And I didn't know much about him. Full disclosure to your listeners and viewers, Jim Callis does our Yankees top 30. So I didn't know that much about him. And think about it, in 2024, he had pitched in the complex league in 23, hadn't hit full season ball, and then last year he missed most of the So I saw him in spring breakout. He was very impressive, and then he missed most of the year because of the back issues. I missed him when Hudson Valley was in Asheville. Unfortunately, there was a rain out. Otherwise, I think I probably would have seen him. There's a lot to like. Obviously, the size. He's 6'7". The stuff with fastball up into the upper 90s, if not better. He misses a ton of bats with everything. I think he's probably will settle into fastball, slider, cutter. There is a changeup, but at a certain point in time, why?
I feel you.
I mean, keep working on it. You're in A ball. But last I checked, I think he's got a 37% miss rate on all of his stuff. And as you pointed out, he's throwing more strikes. And that's going to be the biggest key. He's still young. He turns 22 next week as we're recording this. Yep. And guys like that with that much size, there's a lot that can go wrong mechanically. So the fact that he seems now healthy to be taking a step forward in terms of the amount of strikes he's throwing, that's really, really encouraging. Obviously, the stuff, no one squares him up. He misses a ton of bats, even more so this year than last, when he pitched so sparingly. So all the signs are pointing in the right direction for him. He just needs to stay on the mound, show that he can be durable and handle a full season of workload. But if the strike throwing continues, he's got a chance to be a pretty good starting pitcher.
Yeah, I'm really happy with his progress. So for those that don't know, this guy's 6'7". That's why we're talking about his height here. He reminds a lot of people about Dylan Betances, oddly enough. So I think that if the starting, it looks like it could work now, but his floor is almost like a guy like that. Maybe it's coming in out of the bullpen for anything, just throwing gas and striking a bunch of people out.
Or even as one of those multi-inning guys, which are now those are important, right? So it used to be that a guy pitching the 6th and 7th, big deal. But starters are only going 5.
That's a good point as well.
Come in and get 6 outs in a hurry. That there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I think where he's at, you exhaust every possibility of him being a starter because he's got frontline starter ceiling. And even if he's a mid rotation guy, it's hard to develop real starting pitching. So it's a lot easier to have that guy starting
and then see,
and shorten them up when you need them, as opposed to trying to stretch a guy out who's been pitching in the bullpen.
Right. I think he can definitely be a starting pitcher still. Like, I want to make that clear. I definitely believe in him being a starter at this point. He has 50 strikeouts in 31 innings, which is really good, obviously. It's a 3.4 ERA. I think at the beginning of the year it was high, so he's been getting it lower too a little bit. But I've really liked what I've seen, so we'll see how he progresses. Maybe he gets a call to the Patriots this year if he continues to play well.
I think so. I mean, I think, again, no reason to rush him, especially because – he's only thrown now 127 innings in the entirety of his career.
Good point.
He was a little bit older when they signed him. They only signed him for $10,000, right?
Crazy.
So he's already kind of, the return on investment is like way
looking really good.
you just never know where big leaguers might come from. Right. So there's no reason to rush him. But I think the fact that, he pitched well, not command wise, but he showed that he could get advanced hitters out in the fall league last year. But again, like he needs 10 more innings to surpass 11 more innings really to surpass his career high for innings in a season. So like let's there would be nothing wrong with him spending the year in Hudson Valley. But I could see that, say it's August and he's pitching well, give him a taste of Double-A, knowing that that's probably where he'll start next year.
That's not a bad idea. I feel like any outcome for him is good as long as he finishes the year healthy. Like you said, that's the most important thing. So let's cross over to the other side of town, the New York Mets. The Mets obviously lost the Subway Series, but that's not really what we're talking about today. Ronny Maurico is a guy that's intriguing. There's definitely some possibilities now. I know some Met fans are going to aggravate it with Marte DHing and a couple other things that they might want to change. But he just got optioned to AAA. So I'm curious what you think about him.
About Mauricio.
Yeah.
It's always hard to know what's going to happen with a guy coming off of an injury like that.
It's a tough one, the ACL.
Yeah, it's a tough one. The power has been there. The approach looked like it was improving. The good thing is that this isn't a guy that you're relying on to, the speed is not the carrying tool. It's not that he couldn't run, a couple of 2020 seasons. But if he settles in as an average runner, that's fine. It's that power that I think that, from both sides of the plate, that they're trying to key in on. And I think that, he needs the reps to work on the chase rate. He's got a chance to hit 30 homers a year, I think. There's so much strength. I think if he can make some adjustments, and really sort of buy into that power, that's going to help. We'll see with the ACL. Like, there's time yet, even though I feel like we've been talking about him for a long time. Right? It'll be 8 years ago they signed him this July. So, the power over hit profile is a weird one. He actually could play short. The Mets aren't going to need him to, but he can play second or third. So maybe, if he can get himself going, then, this is a guy who could certainly help them out at some point this year at a bunch of different positions.
Yeah, I could see him playing second. I think Brett's handling third pretty well if they want to keep Brett out there. Second's kind of like a question for me.
Sure, I wasn't even looking at the Major League roster. I just meant in general. And you could, you could, if you feel that he could handle it, move him around, right? And you get his bat into the lineup 4 days a week. And even, he gets a start every 10 days at short when Lindor needs a day off. He could play third, he could play second. He can even play a corner outfield spot.
I was asking about that too. I was curious what you thought.
Yeah. I know. I think he'd probably be fine out there. I mean, he's got a plus arm. He's athletic enough. Again, if the knee is fine, then there's no reason why he couldn't do it. and so then they'll have to decide, well, if we decide he's ready, then is it better for him to be playing in one spot every day?
Yeah.
Or is he the kind of guy who can handle? There's some guys who like it, who like moving around, and he has moved around. It doesn't seem to bother him all that much. He played, I guess in 2023, he played a bunch of outfield in AAA, without remembering what the Mets personnel was. Maybe they thought that would be the fit for him. And then when he came up in 23, he played second base mostly. So maybe it's a second field outfield moving back and forth, but he does have experience in left field. He's just sort of making his way back now. And it's only been on the dirt so far, but it's such a small handful of games that, I wouldn't read too much into that. But if you start seeing him if you start seeing, left field and the box scores in AAA, then maybe that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, it's definitely a puzzle with him. I want to see if he gets a look this year. If not, maybe next year when things are more clear on the roster, depending how he plays off the injury. I think he's an intriguing guy. I feel 100% the same way as you do. He chases way too much. That's like the only hole in his game, but it's a bad hole, obviously. So we'll see if he can clean that up. So another guy who's kind of similar to him, but on a different pattern now is Jett Williams. A little bit of mix of infielder and outfielder too. Do you view him as more of an infielder or an outfielder? And I'm like, how do you think he's going to hit when he ever gets the call? I guess
I've been really pleased to see how he's hit so far this year. Last year was such a strange year. He was hurt. And I think that impacted him before he had surgery. I think it was really impacting him. I saw him in the fall league, and he didn't look good, but there was a lot of rust. I don't know if he was 100%, but let me sort of preface by saying I think what Mets fans are going to love is that they're going to love the effort. He plays with his hair on fire. He was very insistent on playing in the fall league, because he didn't care what it looked like, what the numbers looked like. He just wanted at bats. He wanted to play. I don't have a real preference. I think he'd be fine at second base, like more than fine. But I think it's going to depend on where the need is when he's deemed ready. And listen, he's 21 for all of this year. I think he finishes the year in AAA, and then it's kind of going to be like, right, well, what's the big league personnel looking like? Do we need him in the outfield, or do we need him at second base? And that's where you put him. And because the bat is going to be ready first, and he's doing a lot of things this year that he showed 2 years ago. He was just starting to scratch the surface, and it's been good seeing him move up to AA, considering the lack of time he spent there with 87 at bats in 2024, that he's swinging the bat as well as he has this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Jett could do. I might get to get a look at him next week or like towards the end of May, because I think Binghamton's coming to Somerset, so I'm going to see if I can watch a game or something.
He's fun to watch. I mean, even if he doesn't do anything, he can impact the game just because he's a good defender. He runs well, and that I would imagine his style of play is kind of infectious on any team he's on.
I don't know if this is too much of a reach, but does he remind you of a Pete Crow Armstrong a little bit?
In terms of the energy, yeah. I mean, Pete Crow Armstrong is one of the best defensive outfielders I've ever seen, starting back from his high school days. So that would be a little unfair.
Yeah, that's my reach.
And but I understand the feel for hit and the speed. There, I can see where you'd want to do that. But PCA is a kind of special guy. I think Jett Williams could be a very good player. And listen, we might be talking about both of them pretty soon. But I think because of Pete Crow Armstrong's Gold Glove defense in center field, it's a little unfair to compare anybody to him, especially with the way he's been swinging the bat this year.
Yeah, he's been exceeding all expectations. I just think it's ironic because the Mets traded PCA, which is another reason why I kind of brought that into the equation. I figured why not. So, last Mets prospect I want to go through is Brandon Sproat. What are your thoughts on him?
I wish I knew what to make of him. I feel like, and this is without any inside knowledge, but we're getting to a point now where maybe you have to start thinking about putting him in a bullpen.
Oof.
Now, I know that's not what people want to hear.
Yeah, no one's gonna like that.
and maybe it's too early. I spoke to him in spring training. Like understands the craft really well, and that's why I wouldn't want to give him. He threw enough strikes last year where I'm like, okay, let's have him take the next step. And listen, it's been 8 starts so far this year, so I don't want to go too. But he's missing less bats, which happened at the end of the year last year after he moved from AA to AAA. AA looked like he really clicked. And this year it's just been, the walk rate is up and the strikeout rate is down. He's getting hit a little bit too much. And it seems like, he'll put together a decent start or two and they're clearly managing his innings. And then he'll have a terrible start. Right. So, and he's 24. Mm-hmm. This isn't a 21-year-old.
That's the problem there.
Right. And listen, that's not old, right? So let's say he doesn't make it to the big leagues next year. He'll be 25 for almost all of the season. That's fine. And there's different paths for everybody.
It's fair.
But I think the hope was, as that senior sign out of Florida, that he would be a little bit quicker to figure it out. And he did get to the upper levels. I haven't dug into the data or anything like that. I just not sure what's been at play that he's got swing and miss stuff. He's got a full array of pitches. He's got all the things that point to him being able to start. But, I'm wondering if the inconsistencies continue, it's something they'll have to consider, even if it's just for right now, let's let him build some confidence. He can help the big league club out. The fastball slider combination will play up out of the bullpen and then figure it out next year. You can always stretch him back out, not in the middle of the season, but it used to happen a lot more that teams would do that they would ease a guy in out of the bullpen and then stretch him back out and start as a starter. But that's been happening less and less. So I don't want to say he's at a crossroads because it's a little too early to say that, too early in the season and still too early in his career. But I do have some questions about what his future role is.
I haven't looked under the hood either, to be honest with you, but maybe it's an issue adjusting to the ABS. I know a lot of guys have a hard time coming at AA to AAA jump as pitchers. Like Will Warren had a tough time with it too.
Yep,
I spoke with him about it a few years ago. I don't know if that's it. Maybe it's part of it, but we'll push towards the draft. It's actually sneaking up on us, kind of. It's around 2 months or so now. The season's kind of going quick, right? So what are some areas of strength that both teams can look to attack possibly?
Yeah, I mean, given that, right now I just wrote my first mock draft last week, so we tend to be really first round focused,
right?
But you and then you really when you're doing that, you're really this early when you're doing a mock, you're really want to talk to teams at the top and the bottom half of the first round. You're not worrying as much about it now. Maybe you run a name by the team saying, hey, is this a possibility? So, when you're talking about teams that don't pick at the top, you want to know where are the strengths of the draft, and the fact of the matter is that neither the Yankees nor the Mets have a first round proper pick. Do I have that right? Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
The Mets pick at 38 and the Yankees pick at 39.
Right, because the luxury tax. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So the two things at play. One, there may be some high school arm who could go in the first round who slips down. Now, neither team has a huge bonus pool, so they can't be super crazy. They could go after a high-end guy there, pay him a lot, and then the rest of the draft will be a bit, I don't want to say a wash, but they'll have to be more, a little more careful. Mm-hmm. But the strength of this draft class, and it's not a great draft class overall, is high school infielders, especially high school shortstops. So there's going to be a bunch taken in the first round, maybe more than we've seen in a long time. But invariably, what will happen? Some will have signability issues, and some will get pushed down. Now, so there may be a group from that high school infield crop that will be around for both those teams in the 30s. They're also, it's not a great draft for college bats, but there might be some guys who come into play like, oh, they didn't really work their way into first round proper, but maybe in that sort of larger sandwich round area where they're picking for the first time, there might be some of those guys that didn't quite make it to that first round caliber player based on their performance this year. But I think that might be the best options. But like I said, it's that high school infielder group that is the best, starting with another Holiday, Ethan Holiday, who could very well be the number one pick in the draft.
Yep. So I'm going to end you with this. I'm really curious how you got into this prospect path. Like, what's your journey been like? What's been like a cool moment? And like, how much you just love covering baseball?
Oh, I love covering baseball. I mean, and I've been very lucky. So a long time ago, I worked for the New York Post in the sports department, just starting out. And honestly, would have done any kind of full-time writing job. I worked on the desk and got to write here and there. Baseball was always my first passion in terms of covering it. So I just kind of got lucky that way back in 1999, when Major League Baseball was hiring their first ever full-time staff writer for the website. I got the long straw, right? I was lucky enough to get that job, and then. I guess 4 years later, 2003, we had already expanded the whole baseball advanced media thing, and we had a lot of national writers. I always enjoyed doing prospect stories. I enjoyed covering the fall league. The draft was always a huge deal on the site, and we didn't really have anyone dedicated to covering prospects. So, the combination of really, we had a lot of very talented national writers covering the big league side of things, and no one doing the prospect side of things, that I kind of said, hey, why don't I do that? And I've been doing it ever since. So it's now I'm not going to do math, but 23 years, 22 years of whatever, of just covering prospects. And it's been amazing to watch the growth, not just within MLB.com and the importance of prospect coverage and MLB pipeline, but the industry of covering prospects and the interest in fans. So it's been fun. I love being able to introduce fans to players. It's not always for the first time now because there's so much extra coverage, but for the more casual fan who goes to MLB.com, a lot of them are learning who these players are for the first time through the work that we're doing. And I continue to be very proud of that.
Well, you do a great job, and I appreciate it too, because I learn about certain players too. Like, I still like the pipeline rankings as the best, but I'm looking for the prospect rankings.
Well, I paid you to say that, so thank you.
I'm waiting for that one to come in still, but but seriously, their top 30 list is really good. I always enjoy the top 100s. You guys do good updates and stuff, so I'm looking forward to seeing what's ahead and with the draft. So, Jonathan, thank you so much. This was awesome insight on both teams and kind of like what goes on under the hood with you too.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Anytime, and best of luck. Wait, I should play this now. Oh, yeah.